correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, make that process a lot more manageable and that you're not managing every single appointment individually. So, you know, I think that these sort of small steps are helpful, you know, and will get us there better.
I thought that the JPL meeting was kind of educational from a standpoint of coming up with a good process and knowing what to ask the boards, committees, commissions, the chairs who needs to be involved. It's not, you know, not always just an appointment like HRC. There's certain qualifications. So, like you said, it's much different than appointing to, you know, some other committee. So yeah, so I think we came up with a lot of great ideas. You know, maybe there needs to be terms on applications. We have quite a few on file. So it definitely, we've come a long way.
Yeah, and I want to thank the clerk for working with us for both years now. When I got it, she made me laugh the other day that this appointment cycle, it takes longer than elections. Wrapping up elections. I mean, it is an enormous amount of work on the part of myself, the clerk, and the trustees that sit on JPL and the rest of the board. So it's very rewarding at the end, but it's a lot of work. So any way we can make her job easier is better. Yes.
Yes.
Oh. So I would move to remove Mr. Nate Cave from being appointed, considered as an appointment to the Board of Appeals.
Okay. And it's an appointment as an alternative, correct? Alternative one?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that needs to go there, but do we have a second? If there's no second, motion fails for lack of second. Anything further? If not, do we have a motion to approve the slate of appointments with removing the bid and the CDA appointments from the roster to be done June 3rd?
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's a resident that would like to speak. State your name and address, please.
Jeff Davidian, 4101 North Prospect. Is that slate of appointees in that packet? I looked through it and I didn't see it. You're listed? All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's part of a table that is highlighted. So it's less traditional of a
Colored?
Yeah.
142.
So just be careful though, because there's two. So there's a memo from 2019, and then there's also a table that's colored, but from 2018. So it was just put there for reference.
Thank you.
Just so I got confused for a second. I need to make sure clarified. Okay, so we have thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Read back the motion and we will vote.
To approve the slate of candidates minus the CBA and the bid appointments until June 3rd.
Trustee Warren?
I just want to make a quick comment. Just to be clear, my wife April Toy is included amongst the list of candidates. I've spoken with the village attorney who assures me that it's acceptable ethically for me to vote on this slate of candidates, but I wanted to disclose that prior to making any votes.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Yes.
Because that sounds weird, but under chapter 1959, which is the Code of Ethics for local government officials, employees, and candidates, there's a prohibition on voting for a matter on which the personal family member would have an economic or financial interest or have financial gain. There's no pay involved, and it's a total volunteer thing, so it does not violate chapter 19.59, and there's no other prohibition in the contained anywhere in the village code. So it's acceptable under state law.
And just so everyone knows, Trustee Warren's wife is already on a committee, the rec advisory committee, and we're just moving, the recommendation is to move her to a different committee that she has an interest in. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 5-0. Thanks. The next item on our agenda.
We are looking at 6E, consider transportation and parking analysis, project management, and communication plan review.
Trustee Menta, did you pull this?
Yes, I
it was good project management. I thought, and I'm sorry I missed the committee meeting where it was talked about last time. I did not have a chance to review the tape. The concern I have about it is there's lots of opportunities for public input, but you know the issue we've always had is how do people know that those opportunities are there. So, for example, I saw there is one postcard that's being sent out, but you know the village manager's memo has what 1,500–1,600 subscribers, only half of which actually open it. There's a lot of people who are not on Facebook or other social media to find out about it. So if people don't realize that there's a focus group that they may be able to participate in or one of the 4 public meetings, then it's great that we have these opportunities, but if we're not getting the word out, and that's what I'm concerned about. So, for example, I'd like to see a press release and a article in the Shorewood Now, the newspaper, about it. I'd like to see a section of the library that's really promoting and
here's how you can get involved.
visible, so all people heading to the library have an opportunity to find out about it. I'd like, another concern I have is this is all happening over the summer. And a lot of people are, this is going to be more impactful than Wilson Drive. Wilson Drive was the west side. A lot of people who live on the other side of town rarely even drive on Wilson Drive. We're talking about issues that are going to impact the whole village probably a lot more than the Wilson Drive. And I mean, we went out of our way to make sure everybody knew. And I remember Trustee Lane from long ago saying he didn't want anyone at the end of Wilson Drive to say, I didn't know that this was going on. Now, maybe, we went a little bit far on Wilson Drive, but the issue, but at the same time, I don't want us to have a really difficult vote to make on parking, some kind of controversial parking issue, which I've expressed to this board before. Our parking is almost always a loser for us because we are going to make somebody unhappy. So we know we are going to have difficult votes, and I don't want to have somebody come and say, I had no idea that this study was going on, and I would have given my input, and I didn't have a chance. And so, so it's the pushing out that I'm concerned about. The opportunities are there, but how do we make sure that everyone in the village? So, for example, anyone who has requested 10 or more overnight parking, I think they should get a notice. Anyone who is parking on Wilson, on Oakland, who has a permit for the residential congested area, or who parks in a village lot, should be notified. What were the other things we talked about? Oh, there's all these summer events. There's the bike race, there's the Hubbard Park concerts, there's the farmer's market every Sunday. And there should be, I mean, this sounds ridiculous and extremely time consuming, but I'm not suggesting you aren't doing, but anyone on that technical advisory group should be there one Sunday sitting at a desk, stopping people and saying, do you know that the village is engaged in this transportation parking plan? And, what do you think are the really dangerous intersections as a pedestrian, or what are your parking beefs? And, we just really need to be out there pushing it, is my concern.
And just to follow up, and then we'll let the trustees make their comments and questions, and then we'll ask the residents to speak once they're done with their business. The trustee Mehta has expressed this recently to me, and what I think sounds great is we have our pieces in place. So we have focus groups, we have the technical advisory committee, we have open houses, we have a one mailing that's going out, but the piece that I also believe is missing when she explained it to me was, how do people know? I mean, the whole reason I worked on parking for 3 years, and we need a consultant because this is the most controversial public issue there will be in the village of Shorewood, in my opinion. And the consultant was really needed for that public input. And if there are residents or landlords or people in the university commuter section that don't know what's going on, or that there is an open house that's going to happen, because right now we do it through the manager's memo and the communication plan, and I think there's one mailing. But we're really gonna feel that when we go to vote. And so taking a little more time to get the word out, or more effort might be beneficial, and even if it's cost-free, meaning people go to the farmer's market and sit and just say, hey, here's when the open houses will be, here's when focus groups, if you're interested, you can sign up, or whatever it may be for those outreach tools, I think would be a very positive thing. So I agree 100%. How do you get people to the things that are outlined in this communication plan? Trustee Moore?
This might sound slightly generic, but I agree. As much communication as we can make, formal or informal, I think is really, really key and crucial here. When I walked around doing doors during the election cycle, one of the things I heard over and over again was transportation and parking. So it's obvious the community is very interested in this, and I think we've got a very good start here. This is not meant critically, but I do think that the more we can supplement this, the more we can go to farmers markets and say, here's when the meeting is, or something like that. The better it is, and the better it is when we get more of our community involved.
It could be an assignment for the technical advisory committee that everybody takes an event over the summer, each person, and staffs that, and to make people aware. Trustee Hartman?
And I think that the additional ways or methods of communication is probably almost more important than quantity of communication, because you're going to catch them at a farmer's market, you're going to catch them at the criterion, or you may not catch them on Facebook or via the manager's memo. The thing that I keep kind of thinking about is the last sort of big project that we did, Wilson. There's something tangible to look at, and I think that there is some question amongst residents, which is all the more reason why we need a lot more communication around this, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to walk out onto that street and look at what's been done. So, I think the more that we can say, we really heard your opinion, we really heard your concerns, the more buy-in, the more understanding residents will get why we're spending, a big chunk of money and why this is really important. So, I like the idea of having additional opportunities to connect with residents in a couple of different ways. I think about the 500 people that were at that Wilson Drive meeting. People are really passionate about this, and it's what makes our community different from a lot of other communities on the North Shore. So, Lena and I even, it could be helpful to rotate as a trustee at the, at the farmers market to, have some other people there and have some touch points about other concerns. So, those are my thoughts.
Could that be, so the way it's written right now, I don't know what needs to be adjusted, but it outlines more of what are the public events, right? I don't hear anybody saying, my only concern when we met in the committee, I attended that committee, and the consultants were here, and I'm so familiar with it from doing planning for so many years, if you add more focus groups or more open houses or things like that, then it might be additional cost. But if you supplement it with the technical advisory committee, staff, elected officials, I don't know who would put that together, but that planning effort, that communication, so that we do the extra effort of getting people to the events and outreach, then that's no cost. And so is that something that we could assign to the technical advisory committee or to come up with?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of covered, but not very specific, so I appreciate the suggestion. So in the memo, it does say members of the TAG are expected to, and then the third bullet point is assist with dissemination of information. So that is part of their role as they're selected on that group to help us do those things. So I think specifying, participation at the criterium or at a farmer's market or a different event in Shorewood, I think that would be a clear expectation of them based on what I had hoped they would do. I'd be happy to share that responsibility at some point as well, because that's not an issue with me.
Do we need to outline that here, or can we just assign, add a line that says the number one task of the technical advisory committee, the first task is to create an outreach plan or something?
You could if you wanted to be that specific about it, or it could be more general in terms of, approve a communication plan subject to the inclusion of, the TAG participating in summer events. But if you want a more specific actual outline of the dates and times that that could be an assignment to them. So if the board wants to,
Someone's gonna have to coordinate that, because
Right.
if it's not gonna be you, then it needs to be that committee, because, you know, they gotta sign up. People
yeah, I'd be happy to coordinate at the first meeting and report back. It's whether or not, I guess my question is whether or not the board wants to approve that or just understand that it's taking place. That's the only issue that I have with the difference.
Would you say, I'm sorry, trustee Ward?
Go ahead.
What were you saying?
I'd say I'm good with, I'm good with having an understanding. I mean, I can go either way, and this is not a strong purpose, but I'm good with just understanding it's gonna take place. I think it's pretty clear what we're asking, so.
And, you know, the Chair of Public Works, Trustee Maher, is part of this, so he'll be reporting back just as much as I will as well.
I had another concern too, and I think Nathan can correct me, but the issues about not taking minutes, and I mean, I believe that this body, because it's being created by the board, is a public body and would be subject to open meetings. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have public input at that meeting, but I do think it's going to be subject to open meetings. In my opinion, it would be.
We talked about that committee, correct.
Oh, because the memo says there won't be minutes, and that's.
Correct, that detail I don't think was discussed, so if there need to be minutes, that we can add that in there.
They'll be noticed and there'll be minutes. And I mean, for something like this, so as this group, I mean, I'm fine with this group, but for example, I'm not fine with no public input being taken at these meetings, because I'm like, because to me, it's really important that if this group is tasked with pushing out the information about when the public meetings are happening and really getting the word out to the Shorewood residents, then I think it's pretty important that, for example, I can go to the meeting and say, hey, someone should show up at these meetings, we need a banner, we need a couple of questions, maybe a script for people to stop and talk to people. I mean, yeah, I mean, the not taking minutes and not allowing public comment during the meetings, I just, you know, I'm not in favor of that.
Let me specify, just to recap quick from committee, and who else was there? Trustee Carpenter, I think you were there. So if I get something wrong, let me know. But the consultants were very clear, and Trustee Maher had the same concerns, but that the meetings, we discussed that they would be open to the public. They, I'm assuming, being publicly noticed then. And I agree that minutes can be taken, so someone on that committee can be elected secretary. But the public input, actually, before we started talking about this outreach plan, but the public input is the focus groups, the online survey, the open houses, the smaller town halls, or whatever it may be. The technical advisory committee is just to make sure, and this happens in Milwaukee and other places, the advisory committee is really just to make sure you're staying on task for the scope, and that it's a check, it's like guiding the contract.
Yeah, but they're responsible for outreach.
Well, now, today, yes.
No, that's in here.
Yeah, so your example, I think, was one that we didn't talk about or anticipate in the last conversation. So when the consultant was here, the primary concern in terms of the public comment was he didn't feel like this was the appropriate place for someone to come and say, I want to make sure that you are looking at my stop sign in this corner. His intent was that would be sent through either a focus group or through an online comment or through something like that. He wanted to be able to tag, to make sure that we were staying on scope. So I think his term was focusing on what's important rather than what's immediate. And so in his experience, he would have people come to these meetings to make sure that one issue was discussed. Whereas your example of making sure that information is, shared or broadcast, I think that kind of public input is online with what he would be okay with. He just wanted to make sure that there wasn't, a spot on the agenda where all of a sudden the meeting is 2 hours longer based on people submitting things, where he'd be more happy to say, if you have a comment to submit, here's a piece of paper, you can leave it and we'll look at it later, but if there's a comment relevant to dissemination of information, I think that wouldn't be a problem, but.
Well, I think it might be simpler than to take this whole issue of communication about the study away from this group and that become staff. I'm sorry, but your responsibility. And then, you know, you can work with us or however to do that, rather than make it
Share public works.
a task of this group.
Yeah, and once again, maybe this is just, it's a good conversation, I suppose. I'm not anticipating the tag to be creating the communication mechanisms. It's more of, yeah, whether it's me or the consultant saying, here's a flyer, take it to the, you know, farmer's market, or here's something to forward on to your constituents in this email. So I think village staff and the consultant will be creating the communication, you know, mechanisms.
And maybe at Public Works Committee, this is where you would bring it and say, here's the list, anybody can comment at a Public Works Committee.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better, you have to task it to the Public Works Committee rather than to this group.
Task what specifically, sorry, the
Public
creation of?
outreach.
Yeah, public outreach and
The plan.
communication about the plan. I don't, that's kind of what I'm hearing, you know, that would be a better way to do it.
So Bart, basically, it would be you, the Public Works Chair, the committee, and any public member that wants to attend, but to discuss, one of the first tasks would be to discuss how we're going to get the information about public meetings out to the public. Like how we're getting the word that we're doing the study out.
And I hope I'm not missing that. That was the intent of the communication plan here. So there's you know, several places where emails are being sent. You mentioned the parking people. So there's a specific plan where we invite parking permit holders to, you know, to come to a meeting, things like that. So the intent was staff drew up this communication plan, and I'd be happy to add in the summer events. There also is a place in here where we're creating project flyers for the project. I'd be happy to have the library available, whether it's a flyer or poster, things like that. I think the intent always has been for staff and consultants, and whether that goes to Public Works Committee or whether that, I don't know, but the tag was just meant to, quote, disseminate the information. They weren't intended to, you know, create or control that messaging system. That always was intended to stay within either village staff or the consultant, so I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, the issue I had, and I looked at the communication plan pretty closely, it was just that the other than electronic, I mean, we do have a constituency of people who just are not, who are older and are just not on computers very much and don't do Facebook and don't subscribe to the village manager's memo. It's a large constituency, so there were two that reach everybody, the postcard and Shorewood Today, but Shorewood Today is all the way at the end, you know, so I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it now, but how about if we have an opportunity to talk in more detail about it, or maybe I'm the only one who cares about it, I don't know.
No, I'd be fine. There's nothing in here that I intend this to be carved in stone, so if there's opportunities along the way, I invite anyone to, you know, shoot me an idea or a reminder to whether it's to provide flyers at some place or whether it's...
Why don't we just put it on Public Works agenda, the committee agenda, in either the next meeting or the following meeting after that, for additional input into that, more specific. We could still adopt the communication plan with the understanding, I mean, you did say mailing, you said contacting the permit holders. My question, I think Trustee Menta is questioning, if there's only one mailing, how are you doing that? Email?
The intent was to email the invitation,
so
correct? Once again, electronic, but that's, with the capabilities we have, that's the only...
But just maybe discussing that at committee, just to further nail out the details about summer events and things like that. Otherwise, I think it's covered in the communication plan, it's just not specific. Would that work for you, Trustee Menta?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine to come in and give my suggestions just directly to you, or have it at Public Works, either one is fine with me. But I don't know if other people have similar, you know, if there's other people who want to discuss it or have other ideas, then we should bring it back to committee, I think.
I think it would be good to do. We're going to be talking about this probably every committee meeting, is my guess.
I think sending it back to the committee is fine, and would be a good way to make sure that there's, you know, additional ideas and that we're really pushing it out. And I think the committee sounds like we're open to that.
Trustee McKay?
I just thought as long as, you know, it's not a matter of making a suggestion and then pulling back on a suggestion, that it's forward movement, I think. Sometimes when we, you know, I think all the ideas for additional opportunity is great, just as long as staff has clear direction moving forward.
Yeah, I think if the direction is to add, whether it's summer events or more printed materials, I'm fine working that within the current plan and bringing that back and explaining what those are with a chance for comment on anyone else. As long as, my primary concern is that I get approval tonight to start moving forward with some of these things, so.
And I think what's in front of us is what we're paying for too. Like how many focus groups, so
Correct.
that's the most important thing is we nail down that contract.
Yeah, so I'm fine with incorporating additional ideas and bringing it back to Public Works for reference. I don't know if you want them to approve it per se, but, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Just input.
I'll make a motion to approve the transportation parking analysis, project management, communication plans, and direct staff to return to the Public Works Committee for further discussion about the communication plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none,
There were some residents,
oh, I'm sorry. I saw some hands.
Yeah, sorry.
Would you like to come up and you have to state your name and address?
I was
just a small,
just going to ask Donna Pollock, 4395 North Alpine. I was just going to suggest, and Rosie confirmed this, little flyers on Wilson Drive, on windows, on Oakland, where people park in the Metro Market parking lot, she suggested, but I think that those little flyers get a lot of people informed. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, it just takes some legwork, that's about it. But that's a good way to inform people that may not be on any of the social media or even interested in getting the Shorewood Today or the little postcards, but maybe have some parking concerns or concerns about our central business district. And I just want to add, I'm just so grateful that you're finally doing a comprehensive traffic study. We've wanted this for years. So thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Pollock made a great point that there are business owners and employees that don't live here, but that the flyers may reach them because they're parking here. So that's another thing to consider. Is there anybody else that wants to speak from the audience? No. Name, address, please.
It's the neighbor of the year.
The
I
neighbor of
think
the
this is
year.
our volunteer, isn't this our volunteer?
Volunteer of the year.
The neighbor of the year.
Congratulations.
Jennifer Cooney, Bumpus, 4331 North Alpine Avenue. It's in the same vein as Donna's comment. I love flyers. I mean, I think that's really a great way to communicate, but also signs. You could put signs on your corners that are really questionable. And I do have a friend who's very interested in this. He doesn't have kids in school. He doesn't come to meetings. He's not on Facebook. So he really is interested in this. I'm going to tell him about it, but I don't think he's alone. So anyway, that was just for the suggestion.
The bid can help us with employers and employees too. Thank you. All right, so any further discussion? Seeing none, can you read the motion back and then we'll go vote.
The transportation and parking analysis, project management, and communications plan, and to direct staff to return to the Public Works Committee for further discussion about communications.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thanks, Director Bart. Trustee Ward.
Maybe,
Yes. We can take a break and we'll be back by 9:05.